I really love what Jerome has built, as evidenced by the fact that I actually think I am the most repeated guest.
I guess some people throw out, what's that funny thing that they use with all the numbers?
How do you want to break this down, man?
We started with a whole lot of profiles. I think we had like 10 in the beginning.
And I liked that. I was surprised by that because, this is a distant third party thing.
And I think that's what's really important is understanding that there's multiple ways to get there, and finding the thing that's going to work best with you is probably the most important thing we can do when you have so many options. There's a difference between a dream chaser and a dream catcher.
Hey, everybody, this is Matt Halloran, your guest host again for the Dream Catchers podcast with Jerome Myers. Now, listen, I really love what Jerome has built, as evidenced by the fact that I actually think I am the most repeated guest, even though normally I'm the one who's co-hosting with you on the Dream Catchers podcast. So a lot of your audience has probably noticed that I am a huge fan of who you are and what you do. And you just took everything to the next level. And as we have been talking about different things to implement into your coaching and consulting practice, one of the things that you had done recently was you had taken a personality profile and you were like, Matt, this doesn't really, it doesn't really get me. And that took us on a journey. Let's talk about the journey, man.
Look, man, I feel like people who exit have no idea what life looks like on the other side of it. They don't know what their post-exit personality is going to be. And so we wanted to craft a tool, create a tool similar to Myers-Briggs. I guess some people throw out, what's that funny thing that they use with all the numbers? And there's predictive index, there's confidence, but there are people who come in and it's like, I'm a high 7. What is
The
that
Colby.
one?
Yeah.
The Colby, right? People are out there, they're living and loving these assessments, but I've never seen one for folks who are getting ready to exit or who have already exited and say, hey, what do you think about this? I think many of them are going into a space where they don't have any control, they don't have any certainty, they don't even know who they are. And so we thought it would be prudent to give them a peek into what their post-exit personality was going to be anchored in. Because here's the thing, even though you are exiting your business, the anchors of your personality aren't going to go away. They might not be tied to the thing that you've been doing for the past 10, 20, 30, 40, maybe even 50 years. But, and this is a big but, those anchors are still tethered in the ground and they are going to still exist on the backside of your exit.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of people really do think that this is going to be such a magnificently transformational experience that they are going to cast off some of the things that were issues that they might have had in the past. And what you're finding is some of those issues that they had in the past can actually be those wonderful anchor points to really launch them more in the direction that they want in the future. Okay, so how do you want to break this down, man? So how do you want to talk about the assessment? How do you want to go through the different personality profiles? Where do you want to go with this?
I think it's really cool because we went through multiple iterations, right? This started out when you and I just having a conversation about it. And it's like, well, what do we do? And what does it look like? And he's like, all right, Jerome, here's what you got to figure out. And you left me to go figure it out. And I think we figured some stuff out. And we started with a whole lot of profiles. I think we had like 10 in the beginning. And then we kept whittling it down to the main archetypes that we believe that people will fit in. Now, you will have pieces of all of the archetypes, but there are going to be some that dominate. And so those 6 archetypes, and I just want to make sure that I don't mess this up, miss any of them. The first one is Neo, and I think you would expect Neo to be here considering all the work that we've done as it relates to the Matrix, right? Like there's no way that you can come into a Jerome thing and not get some exposure to the Matrix in some way, shape, or form. Then there's the Architect, the Oracle, Trinity, Morpheus, and Agent Smith. Now, Agent Smith's the protagonist or the antagonist in the movie, but he's got some really good characteristics. Ones that really create a space and a place for people to get things done, people who want to enforce and have control. So we've got those six. Now, this for me was one of the most eye-opening experiences because as I started sharing it with folks who were either post-exit or on their way to exit, we started getting some really interesting patterns. And I was shocked at how many people had this dominant, overarching personality profile. But then when we got into the six centers of doubt, it was very different within those six areas. And so, for those of you who might not remember what the six centers of doubt are, they're self image, relationship, and work, health, prosperity, and significance. And so, you have a dominant archetype for your overall personality. And then we talk to you specifically in the assessment or the report for the assessment for each one of those six centers of doubt. And the goal is to make sure that you know what's going on in this one and how you're most naturally showing up. Now, Matt, over the weekend, I got some feedback from someone who told me that, I don't understand the purpose of this. There's no negative options in the thing. And I think I did a poor job of actually setting that person up in order to take the assessment. I think they were looking for this to be something that it's not. We're just trying to identify your personality, right? And there might be some detractors or some negative things, but what we really want to focus on and accentuate, because if you think about our next process, the first part is nourishing, and this fits right into the nourishing bucket. We want to nourish you. We know the challenges that you're going through. And we don't really want to accentuate those. We want to help you find normalcy. We want to help you find some confidence and some certainty. And so this is just what's most like you. What are you most likely to pick?
I have to rewind you before we get back to that, because I think setting clear expectations for the audience, because our call to action is going to be take the dang thing, right?
Yeah.
So I just want everybody to be very clear up front that our goal for all of you listeners is for you to go ahead and take this personality profile. But there's a huge difference between what you have built and the team has built, which is this overarching archetype. But then through those areas, you really do break down things in a different way. So if you take the Colby, you're a 7-5-9-2, right? That's it. Right. And it's very black and white. You've got the INFTJ Myers-Briggs or whatever. You've actually taken this personality assessment to a very, very different level. It's like you've done the astrological sign, and then where all of the other planets were that might have impacted the astrological sign. And when I took it, because I did, of course, because you asked me to do things like that, and I thought it was a lot of fun and very interesting. I was pretty surprised by the results.
Really? Why were you surprised? Because you didn't say you were surprised after you took. He's like, man, this is pretty awesome.
Well, I was surprised mostly because I hate those things. And you and I had a very deep conversation about this ahead of time, because my background is actually as a therapist, and in graduate school we had to take all of those tests. And then after we took the tests, our professor would sit us down and say, these are why most of these tests are broken. Now, those are generally diagnostic criteria or things to help therapists understand, some of the reasons or some of the underlying psychological issues. That's not what you're doing here. And I've taken the Myers-Briggs, I've taken the Colby, I've taken the Strength Finder, I've taken Culture Index. I mean, dude, I've probably taken 100 of these different things. And what I liked about this was, and maybe it's because I liked the language so much, but what I wasn't surprised about was my overarching archetype. What I was surprised at when we went through those other six, some of the other things that just made me feel like Jerome is like this test is listening. And I liked that. I was surprised by that because, this is a distant third party thing. This isn't like an interaction like you and I have on a weekly basis. This is something that I just take this in isolation. And I liked the results. I liked the report. And it really gave me some interesting insight because, as your audience probably doesn't know, I am in the process over the next 5 years of exiting, right? So these are things on my mind, like hardcore on my mind. And so anyway, that's why I was a little bit surprised by it.
Yeah, the second layer, I think, doesn't exist in a lot of places, right? You get four letters with the Myers-Briggs and then you're done.
Yeah.
And they'll say, "Oh, well, here's a degree," but that's kind of it. Even with the love language assessment, right?
Mhm.
You get now they've put a paywall in between uh, the second, third, fourth, and fifth one. You get the first one for free, and then you pay for the other ones now. But even that, like, there's not a discussion underneath like touch being your primary love languages. And so we actually want to get to the things that people are most concerned about, which are, the three things that create stress in a life: self-image, relationship, and work. And then, like, what do you do for your health, prosperity, significance? Like, how are you going to be most successful at it? We had one person take it, and they had an Agent Smith
Oh,
fitness overall, right? And so it's really like brute force. We're going to make it. It's force. It's really strict discipline. And then there were other people who were the Oracle, and it was more cerebral, right? Things had to make sense. People needed to kind of move into it, and maybe they were doing yoga instead of lifting really heavy and hard weights is an example.
yeah.
But you're still getting to the outcome in the end, and I think that's what's really important is understanding that there's multiple ways to get there, and finding the thing that's going to work best with you is probably the most important thing we can do when you have so many options,
Yeah.
right? In the past you just had to take what was available. Now that you've got more options, we want to do the things that fit, because harmony is going to be a really important piece in this next chapter of your experience.
You just said something that just, I was on a call earlier today. And we were talking about the coaching process and how people like you and I, Jerome, and this drives our significant others crazy and probably a lot of our friends nuts. We see things other people don't.
Mhm.
Right. And so you come to us with a problem and we're fixers, right? That's part of our personality profile. And we've done this so many times that we know, well, you need to do this, and this. But one of the nice things about actually starting a coaching relationship with a personality profile like this is because it's going to make you look at yourself on your own time with answering your own. This is you doing this. This isn't being dictated by Jerome or anybody on his team to coach you. This is being dictated by you. And I believe that that level of control that you feel over taking this personality profile, and then Jerome, you take the results of this. Now they do get a report, which I'm going to talk about in just a few minutes. But you, what are you planning on doing with this? So somebody takes this assessment, which again, please, there's going to be a link in the show notes to take the assessment.
Mhm.
You go ahead and take the assessment. What are you going to do as the creator? I mean, you're the architect of this. I mean, to go ahead and use your language.
Yeah. So we're going to aggregate the results in the end, because I think that will give us even deeper insight into the people's personalities and what works and what doesn't work. And so my goal is to condense the amount of time that it takes for people to figure out their next. This is part of nourishing, but when you really think about nourishing, evaluating, exploring, and then transcending, like, there is so much time lost in the experimentation, right? Like, you can evaluate and explore until you die, but we can figure out the things that are going to be in harmony, which allows us to get rid of so much stuff. We talked about the working out from a fitness standpoint. If yoga is the way, then yoga's the way because it works in harmony versus racking weight and slamming stuff down and grunting and yelling, right? Breathing may be the way, time under tension may be the way. But I think so many people feel like it's just a blank sheet and they have to start completely over because nothing that existed before is actually relevant now because it's not tied to the thing that it's always been tied to. And this is stuff, and from our perspective, that's going to move with them. They're not going to, it's hardwired. And unless they're going to create a totally different person, which I don't actually believe is necessary. And I don't actually know anybody that's truly interested in doing that. This is going to help them because they're going to have clarity and they're going to feel seen and understood in a way that I don't think most folks are. And so it will literally, well, first off, we're the only ones that do this.
Yep.
Second off, we're going to have so much of a head start on everybody else who thinks about doing this that they're just not going to be able to catch up because there's not enough time for them to do it. And so as we aggregate the results and we get hundreds and then thousands and tens of thousands of results, it then will feed back into our model that will allow us to create better reports. And then those reports will then inform other decisions because we'll be able to see the gaps, we'll be able to see the weaknesses, we'll be able to see the things that actually invigorate and excite, which I think most people just kind of avoid and they just want to do kind of the vanilla,
Yeah.
not detailed interactions.
Well, so the other thing too, in my projection of all of this, is that as your organization continues to expand, right? You can actually bring in coaches who are specialists with different personality profiles because they work the best with those people. Now you have the experience and all of the skill set necessary to really work with any of these specific archetypes, right? That's part of who you are. But as you continue to grow, that's really going to dictate who you're going to hire and really what you're going to be doing with the data. But you said something there too that I want to make sure that we shine a light on, which is even when you're exiting your business or preparing to exit your business, you think that when that umbilical cord is cut, that you're going to have this ability to just reinvent yourself. And one of the reasons why I stopped being a therapist is because so many people wanted to make so much change in their life, that one, they weren't prepared for, two, they didn't want to put the time, the effort, or the energy into, or and three, that's not how they were wired, man. And so, looking at this and really understanding how you're wired, and then working with somebody like you or your firm to help, maybe make a little bit of adjustments here and there so you can start heading in that direction, can make a huge change in people's life, especially at this massive time of transition.
Yeah, throwing out the baby with the bathwater is just never wise.
Yeah.
I I think people get so wrapped up with their identity being what they do for a living. It's from an earning standpoint. It's not even for a living from an earning standpoint. Although some people do it for a living, right? I mean, they feel like they're supposed to be tethered to the thing 24 hours a day, which I don't think is ever healthy. But so I think what's so essential for us is to truly have folks, and I think this assessment really helps with it. Truly have folks have an identity that's not tied to the enterprise. Once we can separate the two identities, and it's funny because when you're starting the enterprise as a founder, right, they tell you to incorporate so that you have an entity that's independent of you as a person. So if something goes bad, then the business gets sued, not you. And so you're able to get all these protections
Yep.
as a result of from a legal standpoint. But what they don't get on the backside of it, after you've kind of been doing this for a long time, is that you have to unravel your identity from the entity unless you're just going to go with the entity wherever it goes. And unfortunately, most people don't realize this for some reason, or maybe they do and they just don't think about it. Your relationship with your business is going to end.
Ooh, ooh, yes, it is.
It's going to end. There's nothing you can do about it except prepare for it. So the business can end and it can close. The business can end and you can give it to somebody. The business can end and you can make a whole lot of money. I mean, there's ways that you can end it, but just know that it's going to end. That's inevitable. And if you don't have identity outside of that, then maybe you end when it ends too, which I don't think is the ideal situation for anybody.
I don't know if you've ever seen the movie White Christmas. It's my favorite holiday movie. It's a musical, that guy. And there's a great song in the movie that is, what does a general do after they stop being a general? And it's an absolutely beautiful song, by the way. And I highly recommend, if you haven't heard it, it is so unbelievably applicable to what you just said there, is because, you being the star, you being the organizer, everybody looking up to you, all of that respect. What happens when that is taken away? what you still are the person that you are, even when that's taken away. And I want to use a real-time example of somebody who did something that they absolutely loved for an extended period of time, and then took a break, and then started going back to it because they realized it was such a huge component of who they are, which is David Letterman. David Letterman, hosted the whatever Late Show for a really, really long time. And then he took a break and he grew out a big Santa beard. Now he interviews people again, because now he interviews them in the way that he wants. And Jerome, you talk about that in this whole, this program, right? Taking people through the process that you take them through, because a lot of times where they arrive on after the existential crisis, after the discussion, after the soul searching, is very similar to where they left as a business owner. It's just they have a lot more control and freedom. What do you say to any of that?
I believe that we like doing what we like doing.
Mm.
We have our gifts, we have our talents, and our ability to continue to do that, even if it's applied against a different problem, that skill set that we like doing, applied against a different problem, is the magic. And it's not ever going to change. Like, that's not ever going to go away. The goal, once we figure out what we're supposed to do, what we can be best in the world at, we're going to continue to do that. Maybe it's a different industry. More than likely, it's a different problem.
Mhm.
But once you find what you're good at, you're always going to come back to that. And I don't remember which. It was another person, Strength Finders. I did a Strength Finders personality assessment, since we're talking about assessments. And that was the first time I got exposed to the concept of continuing to focus on what you're good at,
Mhm.
and hiring or finding a team to do the stuff that you're not.
Yeah.
So why would we then go and force ourselves to get good at something that maybe we don't even enjoy,
Yeah.
when we have all the resources and can do whatever we want to do?
I love that. Okay. So let's that was my digression, because I think if Dave Letterman took this, I think that he would actually have a chance to really learn about himself and realize.
Hey guys, as you might know, a very small percentage of the people who actually listen to this podcast are subscribers. So do us a favor, subscribe. In fact, we did some analytics and we found out that only 25% of the people who listen are subscribers. And our goal is to get that to about 75% over the next 3 months. So do us a favor, hit the subscribe button so you get notified when our new episodes. We plan to bring immense value to you guys going forward as we continue to improve the content that we create at Dreamcatcher. Your dream should be real.
That he is this core personality. So let's go ahead, and I want to take a little bit of time to so we talked about why it was built, right? We talk about some of the applicability on how you're going to be using this within your coaching system specifically, but let's actually talk about some of the outcomes, right? Let's talk about some of the personality profiles, give everybody a little bit of an idea on what they are. Let's do the overarching archetypes first, if you don't mind, just so that the audience will understand um, some of the results that they can expect from taking this assessment.
Okay, so I think the first one, and it's probably a no-brainer, right? But Neo,
Mhm.
right? Neo is the one. Neo is the hero, right? They've got visionary qualities and they're looking to change the world. Now, that for most people is probably overwhelming. You're going to get a small percentage of people who are Neos, but you'll find that the Neo shows up as a sub um, archetype for those six centers of doubt, even if it's not the overarching thing. It's been really interesting to see how many people shy away from the spotlight. Even as founders, they once they get older, they don't want to be the one. That might have been something that they did early on when they started, but they're trying to get away from that. But that Neo archetype is super strong. They're the visionary. They want to go on and take on super challenging problems and solve them for a lot of folks. And, that can be very rewarding for somebody post exit who's truly looking to climb that second mountain. Uh, Morpheus, right? You can't have a Morpheus without a Neo. You can't have a Neo without a Morpheus. The Morpheus is going to be the mentor. They're going to be the leader. They're looking to help guide people and help them with creating unwavering faith and conviction. Their goal is to look over walls and around corners and help prepare Neo for the challenges that they can't see while they're out fighting all the bad guys and trying to make things better. Trinity is the love interest in the movie, but Trinity is fearless, adventurous. They are support in a lot of ways, extremely loyal, very dependable. Courageous is another word that comes to mind with these folks. Now, I don't know anybody that doesn't want to be described that way, but most people don't actually live out those characteristics. And so this archetype is pretty rare as well because people avoid being Trinity because there's an immense amount of pressure, even though they're not in the spotlight, right? Being number two is very challenging. It's pretty difficult. And a lot of folks avoid that. They don't want to be the vice president because the president might get assassinated.
Yeah.
The next one, the fourth one, is the Oracle, right? This is yours,
Mhm.
right? You're an Oracle. And so balanced and wise, they're always offering guidance and insight. And they just want to help make sense of the matrix, right? They want to help those who are off solving the problems aware of the things that your experience has shown you and then protect you from the potential pitfalls that are out there. Then there's the architect. They're strategic, they're calculating. These are the folks who are playing chess while other folks are playing checkers. The architect is the character in the movie that designs things. They're putting structure in place. Um, they're creating these intricate plans. Now, that doesn't say that they implement them, but if you want to go to somebody for strategy, the
Mhm.
architect is the one. And then there's Agent Smith, right? Dynamic, relentless. They want to make sure that they conquer their adversaries and they will stop at nothing to overcome the villain or the hero, depending on which side of the fence that they're on. The other thing is that they're extremely adaptable when they have Agent Smith, and they're going to find a way to make it work. So those six archetypes govern or guide what a person's post exit personality is.
So it's interesting that you talk about Trinity in that way because I didn't have an ounce of Trinity in mine. So I thought that was very interesting. So my primary was Oracle, and then actually Agent was there too, because I really am very, very adaptable. And now this could very well also be, and I should have probably prefaced this at the beginning of the show, but I'm really nerdy, so I love this stuff, right? And I've seen all of the movies and multiple times, and I really do love the whole lore of all of this, but I love how succinct those personality descriptions are, right? I think the audience right now, it's going to be interesting when they take it. They're going to say, "Well, I think I'm a Neo," and then they come back, a Trinity, or they come back in Oracle, or even more surprisingly, maybe they come back as the Agent. And so if you don't know yourself, in fact, one of the things that connected Jerome and I very early on in our relationship is both of our firm desires to, go back to the Greeks and Socrates and Plato, and saying the greatest journey one person can ever take is within to know thyself. And I believe if you can plug yourself into something that will allow you to get glimpses of yourself in ways that you might not be able to see it, that's why I think people crave these personality profiles so much. But I think so many have missed the mark, and nobody is doing it in the way that you have built here, which is to really talk about, what it's going to be like and where you are in this exit sort of transition.
Yeah, Matt, I feel like we are first movers. I feel like we're pioneers in this space. Had a really interesting conversation with a lady that's been doing exit planning and implementation for, I don't know, 2 or 3 decades. She said basically 18,000 businesses a year sell. 18,000
Wow.
regardless, in spite of, not regardless, in spite of all of the new certified exit planner designation, in spite of all of the new brokers, in spite of all the people who are beginning to talk about exits and buying businesses. And she said, it doesn't matter. Like, this is what sells year over year, and it's not growing. And here's the thing, man, with so many folks, I think there was a stat. There's like 66% of businesses are owned by people who are baby boomers. Those
Oh,
folks are at retirement age now.
yeah.
And so their relationship with the business is going to end. It's just a matter of, do they get what I believe everybody deserves after spending the majority of their life building a business, a lucrative, extremely lucrative exit,
Mhm.
or will they give it to somebody, or will it just close because they didn't have a succession plan? It's totally up to them how they experience that exit. But I think there's going to be a spike in the number of businesses that transact, assuming that the businesses are ready for sale.
Well, there's also the great wealth transfer, and you and I have talked a little bit about this offline, that there's going to be $74 trillion passed down over the next 15 years. And a lot of that is business wealth. Right. And so that's something that as you continue to age or as you continue to prepare to sell your business, there are certain things you have to do to mentally, spiritually, taxation wise, valuation wise, staffing wise, and personality wise that you have to prepare for. And those people you just talked about, they only deal with a few of those. Right. They don't deal with, and I was just talking to somebody about you recently, and we were talking about business, and so because we're business owners and we talk business, and I brought up the fact that that you specifically help people go through the big existential crisis that happens when they sell their business. And they're like, well, does he help with valuations? I was like, well, he knows how to do that. Does he help with all of the sort of structural stuff that needs to be done? Yeah, he can help. He can do all of that. And I said, but that's the sea of sameness. What really brings you to the surface and in a category of one is you're dealing with the stuff nobody else wants to deal with, but everybody who's in this situation deals with, which is one of the reasons why we want people to take this personality profile so they can see who they are and realize that they really do need to have a guide.
Yeah, the sea of sameness. Let's maximize your valuation. And then on after you get the closing documents and you sign and I get my check, I vanish.
Yep.
There might be one person that passes through the portal, right? One person that passes through the portal, and that's a financial advisor
Yep.
who isn't your biggest fan because more than likely you reinvested all the money that you made back in the business while you were building it. So
Yep.
they're not even your biggest fan, but they make it through the portal and everybody else stays on the other side. I think that's the greatest atrocity there is. I believe there's some aftercare necessary for folks who basically blow up their whole life. I mean, think about it, man. Every time that we do a seminar, a workshop, a talk, and we have people do the 2C matrix and
Mhm.
they look at how many people they talk to on a daily basis that are not a part of their business, and we just narrow it down to their top five, about 60% of their folks, a little over 60% of their folks, are going to go away when they sell their business. So you only get to talk to 30 some percent of the people that you normally talk to on a regular basis. How does that not create a void and create a sense of loneliness and just a bunch of questioning? Forget the self image stuff, forget the work stuff. Let's just talk about, well, who do I even talk to? Who's got time or who has interest in talking to me now?
Yeah. You just lost 60%, right? 70%. of, the people that you're interacting with on a daily basis, and the fact that they also know you, right? When you lose people knowing you, there is a humongous void, and we've seen it over and over again, right? We've seen, business owners who sell their business who are craving that so much because they haven't had anybody who've walked them through the portal to the other side to truly help them figure out what is next, that they fall back into patterns. In a lot of them are financial advisors' biggest nightmares because they spend all of their money trying to fill this gaping hole in their soul that they've never addressed. And I believe that this personality profile is a wonderful foundation for you to really figure out who you are, where you're going, and what your skills are, and also how you're going to be best prepared to go to what's next. All right. So I'm going to ask you my favorite question that I ask everybody when I'm hosting a podcast, even though this is your damn show, which is what should I have asked you about this that I didn't?
Why should I take it?
There you go. Take it away.
We've talked about the issue, but here's the thing. If you could get a preview of what life is going to be like on the other side of your exit,
Mm.
after you deal with the founder's exit paradox. You got to deal with the founder's exit paradox. But once you deal with the founder's exit paradox, if you got a preview into what life is going to be like on the other side of your exit, wouldn't that be exciting?
Yeah.
We're offering that opportunity, and we're watching people not take advantage of it because they don't like assessments, or they're scared what it's going to say, or it might be or say something that they're not comfortable with. And at the end of the day, all we're doing is helping you figure out where you're strongest, what you're most comfortable in, so that you can have the success that you truly want to have. And we also want to eliminate uncertainty as quickly as possible, because that is the thing that cripples people from taking action.
Yeah. The most successful people in the world, not just in business, but in life, spend a substantial amount of that life in self-reflection, understanding who they are, what makes them tick. And then when you pass through this portal, it's not such a stark difference because you already know yourself. And also trying to avoid any sort of pain or discomfort, or looking in the mirror and truly seeing yourself, is only going to make that existential crisis even worse. And so please take a moment, take this personality profile, really take a look at who you are and what this profile tells you across the entire report. Don't just focus on one piece. You need to focus on all of the different components of your personality. And then I want you to sit with this. And then after you sit with this, you need to call Jerome. You need to go ahead and email him, and you need to go ahead and set up a time so you guys can review these reports to really find out what's next for you. So for Jerome, this is Matt Halloran. I want to thank everybody for listening. Please make sure that you click on the link in the show notes or in a social media post when you see anything that has to do with this personality profile. Take the time. It doesn't take long, but it gives you an amazing result. So Jerome, thank you very much. We'll see you all on the other side of the mic very soon.